Want me to read the opening statement?
Let me just make sure we're good, we're live. Okay, welcome to the January 7th, 2025 Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design Meeting. We're waiting on 2 members to arrive, but with 3 seated members, we'll go through the intro slides, if you don't mind.
Sure. All right, so as Eric stated, this is the January 7th, 2025 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design. Currently present are Kelvin Yuji, Paula Summers, Jeff Webb, myself, Joel Adrian. Present from planning staff is Eric Schultz. These proceedings are being recorded. We ask those who speak identify themselves for the record. We will conduct the meeting in the usual fashion. First, receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The board reserves the right to ask questions of the staff, applicant, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application, or there's opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else in favor of the application. And next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application. We'll open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, deny, or defer the application. Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design has the authority to do 3 things. 1, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. 2, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. 3, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54(9)24 of the ordinance. Board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum are present and qualified to vote. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to a particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of variance would not be a substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. With that read, I'll say Ruthie Ravenel has joined the meeting as well. So our first item.
Mr. Chair, if I could, please. Anybody here for item number 4, Hollydale Court? That has been deferred. It is up to the applicant to inform the city when they will like to be placed back on an agenda, so stay tuned there. Also, I've been informed that Joel Adrian, our chair, has a conflict with item number 2. So we'll have to recuse himself and leave the room. Could I call on Kelvin, being our attorney, to take over the reins for that particular item? Thank you. All right, so
Excellent, thank you.
great.
And our first item will be item A1, which is a review of the minutes. Do both of these, right? There's Paul, and it's not. Oh no, that was reviewed. I'm sorry. Look at the wrong thing. First item is review of the minutes from December 4th meeting, 2024. Any questions or comments, or is there a motion?
Minutes look accurate. The minutes are accurate.
Yes.
And I'll move for approval.
Motion for approval.
I'll second.
Somebody second by Ruth Ravenel, and it would just be 3 of us. All in favor?
Aye.
In favor? Opposed? That is approved 3-0. We'll go on to item B1, which is 2201. Looks like Harriet Street, Magnolia, subdivision TMS 464-1300023. Request a variance for section 54(3)27 to allow the removal of 1 grand tree.
The property zone PUD is kind of a, well, this is the application pertaining to 2201 through 2205 Harriet Street. They're addressing the hardship test. So this is part of the Magnolia PUD. This land was acquired by the master developers, and then It's in the process of, well, it has been, I believe, deeded over to the city, and the city's going to be in the process of deeding it over to Habitat for Humanity. And the idea here, under, I believe, the leadership of Mayor Tecklenburg, was to, gain some affordable housing. So it's in the PUD. You can see it's at the corner of Rutledge and Harriet as you come off the I-26 interchange there. So it's been a vacant lot as far as I've been in the city. It's got a little dish to it, so it's got a little low spot, and fairly centered in the lot is a double leader pecan tree. So the concept and the site plan shows 3 attached single-family dwellings. I believe these will be for purchase, so it's going to be in a horizontal regime scenario. There is a smaller pecan tree on, I pasted off the other day, and I think it's in the easement. It's the rod man might have been a couple inches off. So there's a weird kind of a utility easement that wraps around the west and south side of the property. There's a huge utility box in the north west corner you can see there. What's unique about this site is the traffic impact study for Magnolia. Once that gets built out, there is a need for a right turn lane improvement at the intersection of Harriet Street and Rutledge. So we went through a process to get that area set aside, knowing that the improvements would come in the future, and therefore they could proceed with their site planning activities. So parking, there's an existing curb cut on Rutledge that the parking would access off Rutledge and park to the rear. The front stoops would tie into the relocated sidewalk at some point in time. So, and the tree, as you can see, is in unit, the most western unit there. This is just a blow up. There's some really bad, beat up, dead China berry trees and some other invasives, but the trees on the western boundary shouldn't really need to be touched since it's in an easement. So this is the photographs submitted by the applicant. As you can see, it's a double codom above 4.5 feet, and, or no, just below 4.5 feet. So we measured both trunks, 14, 18. These are the photos that I shot. You can see, water tends to sit there occasionally, a lot of surface roots, and you can see the seam of included bark between the 2 codominant leaders. Staff recommends approval with the condition to plant 24 caliber inches of native canopy trees in the form of 2 3-inch trees on the site, and a contribution to the city street trees program in the amount of $2,065. Must submit a landscape plan for staff review and approval.
All right, thank you, Eric. Is the applicant present? And I'll ask, is there anybody opposed to the application?
Oh, and by the way, for all 3 items that will be heard, we received no written comments, so I'll just get that out of the way now.
Hi, good morning, or good morning. Good evening. I'm Amy Chico with HOA. I'm also on the board for Charleston Habitat at Lynn Valley, the executive director for Charleston Habitat. Eric explained everything about the site, the electrical easement. It goes around the outside edge of the property with a very large electrical box. Ideally, we wanted to put 1 single family home on this property. But at the city's request to have multifamily, and I believe they originally requested 4 units, but we can only fit 3. So the existing property line is up here, but we've accounted for the proposed turn lane and moved the units up as close to the property line as we could in order to provide access from the existing curb cut, since Rutledge Avenue is under the SCDOT purview, so we wouldn't be able to get an access any closer to the intersection. So based on those, we really had no other place to put the tree, to put the buildings, which goes on top of that 1 grand tree that we're asking permission to have removed.
All right. Thank you.
Any questions?
We'll ask questions if we have them. Anybody else present that is in favor would like to be heard? No one's opposed, so we'll close the application to the public. It'll be opened to the board for discussion and questions.
I do have I don't know if it's a question or observation, and I'm not sure you've done this. Has there been any evaluation of the removal of the tree? The issue of water and the impact of the homes that are near that area?
You're talking about storm water? No, we have not gotten into any stormwater design yet. We're just doing this pro bono and working on seeing if we can get the trees removed to see if this is even a viable project.
Eric, typically, the project will need to go through TRC.
It will go through technical review. We had a sketch plan Wednesday. I can't recall all the comments that came out of stormwater, but as I stated, I don't know if the photo shows that, but the existing sidewalk, I would say, is probably maybe 6 to 12 inches above where the tree grade is. It does dip down. Then slopes maybe back up toward the adjacent residence there. You can see there's a little dip off of, so stormwater will ensure that the neighboring properties are not impacted by whatever improvements are necessary for the parking lot as well. And I believe these are, as you see in the site plan, due to possibly the flood elevation. I don't know, Amy, if you can speak to
Yes,
that, but
they're-
they are
Elevated.
elevated. They have a front stoop of a couple steps there.
And there is room on the corner and on the other side, possibly just stormwater.
Yeah. It's nice, there's extra room on the site to work with. It's not locked in. Road structure, no property.
Eric, I know there wasn't an arborist, but would you grade the?
I would
tree?
agree the tree a C with the included bark.
Will these homes be part of the city's affordable home program?
It's through Charleston Habitat, which is an affordable housing program.
So we sell to families who earn between 35% and 60% of the area median income. So these will be sold homes for people in that demographic.
And then the resale requires that delineation perpetuates, like the next owner like has to have that.
So there will be, I believe it's a 20-year restriction, but it might even be higher than that. I'll have to check the transfer documents. But there, the city of Charleston will also put that affordable housing restriction on those.
But how much room or lot are you losing by having to add that right turn lane? Property line have to adjust or?
Yep, so does my cursor show up? It does.
The drawing accounts for the
Existing right of ways here.
the existing right of way, and then this is the proposed right of way.
Well,
So
Sorry
we
about
were
that.
accounting for it in our design.
Right, but was it, did the right of way grow and push our property line back or to where the buildings had to now push back on the property, which all I'm saying is if the lot used to have a property line of 100 feet, is it now 80 feet because we had to account for the right of way increase?
When you get to about right up here, it comes back, it's on top of the existing right of way, so it was the corner, pushing this corner back, since
Okay.
the buildings are attached.
Yep. And that's what you're,
Unique situation.
Right.
exactly. I think that the hardship test is met is all I'm getting at.
Good point. I'll make a motion for approval with city's staff's recommendations.
Second.
All right, so motion for approval with staff conditions. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Favor.
I in favor. Any opposed? And that is approved. Thank
Who
you.
seconded that?
Kelvin.
Kelvin,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right. Kelvin, you got it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. This.
Property is located at 21 Nicholson Street, Burns Downs, TMS number 421-01-00-062, Council District 11, Zone SR2. Is a request for special exception from section 54-327 to allow the removal of one grand tree. The owner of the property is Megan Gagish, and the applicant, I apologize if I
You were so
Georgia.
close.
The applicant is William T. Eubanks.
Very good, thank you. Trip over the West Ashley burns down. We're dealing with a water oak. Here is the application submitted by Mr. William Eubanks. This letter. So it's a triple water oak, 12-12-14. Sits on the corner of Nicholson and Southall Ave. So that's R2. So the house, doesn't particularly face one street or the other. It kind of it goes right on the apex of the triangular shaped lot there. And what they're wanting to do is remove a fence, an existing fence, which you'll see in the photos, and then provide a parking space, concrete parking pad on that side of the house, and add a pool on the opposite side of the house, as well as front walk and some raised beds and what have you. You can see there's 3 crepe myrtles on Nicholson and live oaks on the other side street. And this tree, I suspect, was a volunteer. I don't know if there was a different style fence at the time, but so here's the photos submitted. It's right behind the sidewalk. And this is easily a C grade tree, if not a low D, with the weak connections. And you can see a steel post, I think, in the union of the stems at the base there. So this is a letter of support that was submitted from a neighbor at 5 Southall Street. Is that right, Southall or Southall? Southall. These are my photographs. I gave it a C. It has weak connections at the base and starting to eat a little bit of the sidewalk as well. Staff recommends approval with the condition to plant 19 caliber inches of native canopy trees in the form of 2 2.5-inch trees on site, and a contribution to the city street tree program in the form of $1,475. Submit a landscape plan for staff review and approval.
Will the applicant please come forward?
Good evening. How are y'all doing? Bill Eubanks with Urban Edge Studio. Eric did a great job explaining the situation here. This is obviously a volunteer tree. It's growing right on the property line. It's already heaving the sidewalk. The city's already had to come in and grind the sidewalk down because it's heaving it. And the owner's going through renovations in addition to the home right now, and it just seemed like a good time to take care of this tree. As you guys know, water oaks tend to be short-lived and susceptible to storm damage. So we're just thinking this would be a good time to go ahead and take it out. While we're doing other work on the site, we're going to be doing some extensive landscaping. There are, as Eric said, there are 3 live oaks that are in the verge right now and 3 crepe myrtle on the verge on the Nicholson side. So we have very little room to plant new trees. The preliminary landscape plan does show 2 live oaks, one in the verge, kind of at the near the property line on the Nicholson side, and another one in the yard. But we'd appreciate your support for the removal of this tree. And I'd also ask y'all, since this is a private property owner and it's going to be very expensive just to remove the tree, ask y'all to use your discretion as the board to possibly reduce or waive the mitigation in this situation. Thank you.
There were no written comments submitted regarding this application.
You're the owner, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Would you like to speak to the board?
The only thing I really have to mention is that there is a fence post growing in it. It is dangerous. We have a metal piece sticking out the post, and I think my neighbor's letter refers to that. So of course, I think the tree is not in a good location, but I also worry about the safety. It's extremely nervous with this metal piece.
If you could just state your name and
Thank you.
again, the address for the record.
Thank you. This matters, is there anyone to speak in opposition? This matter is closed for public discussion. Board. What?
Eric, can you get back to your staff recommendations?
So this is a category C or a category, yes, categories A, B, C tree requiring 50% of the DBH inches to be mitigated for. Realizing the site's going to have a lot of things going on. I thought 2 trees could be tucked in, and then the residual inches I just divide by 2.5. I come up with that figure.
And Bill, you said you've got 2 trees?
We're planning on planting 2 2.5-inch caliber live oaks right now.
It makes sense to me to take it out. My son rides his bike on those
I know you're gonna say if something happens.
sidewalks. So no, I mean, it's, it's a family neighborhood and there are a lot of great trees there that are in much better shape than this. So I'd be in favor with staff recommendations, but definitely right here for everybody else.
Same. Considering what kind of our protocol has been on reductions for residential. I know we've had that discussion.
Yeah, I appreciate Bill requesting that, but I don't think that we've offered a reduction in the past. I don't think we want to set a precedent there. Just
Is it mandatory?
So the ordinance reads that you replace with 50% of the DBH inches, which is 19. Obviously 19 caliber inches can't fit on this lot. So that's where I took, subtracted out 5 inches from 19. I took the residual 14 inches divided by 2.5. I think I rounded down, typically we round up just to come. So the city purchases a tree and plants it for $295. So that's how I came up with that figure. And they tend to, every time I submit the checks to revenues collections, they want to know specifically where the tree came out of, what neighborhood, and they try, I think, to do their best to plant trees back in the vicinity.
Yeah, I don't know that reducing the number meets the hardship test. I'm sure the pool is costing a lot, so sort of part of the budget, in my view.
I'll make a motion for approval with staff recommendations.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
I'm in favor.
Any opposed?
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Eric, can you plant those in Burns Downs?
We will get Parks to plant them in Burns Down.
Thank you.
If you see Joel out there, could you send them in?
Okay.
Yeah, still not gonna give him this job.
Right?
Yes.
Went down.
All right. Our last item, to be item B3. 12 Oliver Court, Cannonboro, Elliottboro, TMS number is 460-150207. Zoned LB, request a variance from section 54-347 to allow a reduced and modified 5-foot landscape area.
So 12 Oliver Court, this is an interesting site and lot location. We'll get into it in a minute, but this is the application submitted by the applicant. This is the variance hardship test. So This particular section grew out of, I don't know how many years back, but we used to, when you have incompatible zoning, this being a commercial for-profit kind of use against a incompatible zone district, we used to apply the suburban landscape buffers, like a 25-foot landscape buffer. Well, that didn't make sense on the peninsula. So a number of years back, we amended the ordinance to just require a 5-foot landscape area, requiring a wall and a evergreen tree every 25 feet. So due to I believe the hardship of the lot, which I'll get into, they're asking to modify those requirements, but not all of them, but just some of them. So anyway, this is the letter. So here it is. It's off of Oliver Court, which runs east-west and then also north-south. And this particular piece is, we believe, although it kind of shows as a public right-of-way, it's private, and we're looking into the ownership and the history of that. But this particular piece that runs north off the east-west portion of Oliver Court is unimproved. It's got just grass and weeds and stuff growing in it. But so 12 exist there in relationship to all the neighboring parcels. And you can see it's wrapped on the east and south by the DR zone district. Therefore, a landscape area is required 5 foot in width on those sides. It's a pretty rundown residential structure presently. They've gotten approval to demolish it, and it being zoned LB. Here is his presentation. So this is the cover sheet. There's the house. This is the survey. Wood frame house. And his approach. This is the top right photo is the Oliver Court. That's kind of unimproved, approaching 12 Oliver. The existing massing, if you will, exhibit of the surrounding structures. So what they want to do is take it down and build a workout type gym fitness center in which you would obviously pay to use. So new structure with a boardwalk type system walking around the south and then to the north. But what's kind of exciting is the requirement for the wall is still in the proposal. So we'll get into that in just a minute. If they find out more about the ownership of Oliver Court and the city attorneys, and we get together, there's a possibility that they like to convert that to a little urban garden type sitting area. That's to be determined. So here's a blow up of the east side and the west side, 88 ramp with deck kind of landing area, and steps on the west side approaching the doors and windows with a residential unit above. So when you look at the 5 foot space, he's providing that. This would be the required landscape section diagram. A wall, 6 foot, and a tree. What he's proposing is the elevated like boardwalk system with an 8 foot privacy fence. So the ground level on the opposite side of the fence, the individual would be lower than the 12 Oliver. So he's reached out to the neighbor in the neighborhood and came up with a good neighbor agreement between these addresses, 5 Carrere Court, 12 Oliver Court owner. So signed by 3, 5, 5, 7. So I thought that was above and beyond, and communicating and working it out. So there's mitigation for construction, delineation of right of way, noise and privacy mitigation, enhanced landscape buffering. And then also we received an email. He presented this to the neighborhood association, and they voted in support of the project in the landscape buffer variance. Canterbury, LA Borough Neighborhood Association. So with that said, staff recommends approval with, as per the plan and details presented.
All right, anybody present that is opposed? The applicant present. Would you like to be heard?
I'll just very briefly, it's just a unique situation, I think.
State name and address,
sure.
sorry.
Steve Ramos, I'm the architect for the project, and I actually live in the Canterbury, Elliottboro neighborhood at 48 Bogard. And, Eric explained it really well. I think the unique thing about this property is that it's the smallest commercially zoned property in this area, and we are proposing a true commercial use in the fitness. And it's in a flood zone, so we're elevating the building about 3.5 to 4 feet. And the most reasonable location for a ramp is in that 5-foot setback that we're providing, and really could not find another way to mediate those changes. And so if you go back to that section, the last section diagram, I think we're generally meeting the intent of the code by providing the same setback that we would be providing. Instead of a solid masonry wall, we're providing a fence, but we're going to make it 8 feet at the request of our neighbor at 3 Career Court. That'll also allow for the groundwater to flow. And we just cannot accommodate the trees that are required because of the ramp. So, but again, I think the intent is there. And we worked hard to get the support of neighbors and the neighborhood. So, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else present that's in support that'd like to be heard? We'll close the application to the public, go over to the board for discussion. Board motion.
Can I join the gym?
Where do you park there?
Also, I'll be back in this room in 2 weeks asking for a parking session. The owner of this property owns 2 properties in the vicinity. And so the intent is to leverage those for parking and drop off.
Well, I think the wall, having a fence versus a wall, like you mentioned for drainage, improvement there.
I think it's unique, a unique solution, and I commend you for meeting with all the adjacent property owners and doing the right things up front, so support.
You did say that you went to 8 feet high at the request of the adjacent property owner. So if they're all right with it, I don't know why anybody else.
And it's not a view from a public right of way either, right on the back side. The only person it affects is the neighbor.
That neighbor. So,
I'll move to approve with recommendations. I'll second.
all right. Motions for approval or staff conditions. All in favor?
I'm in favor.
Aye in favor. Any opposed? Opposed, it's approved 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good, thank you. And item number 4 is deferred. That concludes the January 7th meeting.
I sensed it. I sensed the need.